How do you grow your number of stockists to over 1,000 in just under 2 years? That's what we're going to be exploring in today's podcast. I'm joined by Andrew Kemp, the co-founder of Bearkind, and also Candid Founders, which is a YouTube channel helping people grow with wholesale. Hi, I'm Catherine. I am the founder of the Resilient Retail Club, which is my membership group and mastermind for product business owners. You can find out more about my services at resilientretailclub.com. I'm also your host today, and I'm going to be diving in with Andrew to get into the nitty-gritty of how he grew his sales. Now, even if you don't have a product that you wholesale, stick around, have a listen, because what Andrew talks about is applicable to finding customers for your business, no matter how you sell. Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good, confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Welcome to the podcast, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do you want to start off by introducing yourself and your business?
Hey, Catherine, it's Andy here from Bearkind and Candid Founders. We sell socks that save animals. I've got a little prop here. This is our ducks. We save ducks. We've supported over 40 different charities, and then we got into over 1,000 different retailers. So we started a little YouTube channel, and we're just trying to share with other businesses how we grew from 0 retailers to 1,000 in a couple of years. And I think there's a lot that other business owners can learn from that. So we're just trying to share that kind of journey. So thank you so much for having me on the pod.
No, it's my pleasure. And let's jump in then. So 1,000 retailers, that's, no small feat in 2 years. How did you manage to scale so quickly when the brand was still so new?
Well, it was honestly a really crazy thing. So we've been running Bearkind for basically just coming up to 8 years now in a couple months time. And the first couple of years we were selling metal straws, plastic t-shirts, bamboo socks, recyclable tote bags, kind of everything and anything that we thought could help improve the world. And we kind of did a bit of an experimentation and we tried a whole bunch of different products and our bamboo socks took off. Funny enough, you can't really communicate the feel of a plastic t-shirt. The metal straw was a bit of a kind of fad. And it turns out no one actually buys tote bags. They just kind of get them. So we went into the animal socks and that was going really well. But we were just kind of not stuck is the wrong word, but we were just focusing on direct to consumer e-commerce, kind of that bread and butter. Like everyone saw in COVID, kind of massive return on ad spend, and we were doing really well. So we didn't really need to look elsewhere. So then we got to a point essentially where we were introduced by one of my friends, Martin, who said, actually, Faire is coming to the UK. And I was thinking, what's this Faire platform? Essentially, Faire in the US was the way that direct to consumer businesses were getting in front of the long tail of retailers. There's so many retailers around in the world, as you guys know better than most, right? We're kind of sitting, how do we get in front of podiatrists? How do we get in front of physiotherapists? Really everyone and anyone who would want to save animals with socks. And so Faire came to the UK. They had this stonking offer, which was £400, which is crazy to think, for introducing retailers to the Faire platform. And so we went out and we found those, kind of rich niches. And this is what we're recommending to businesses like the ones that follow your kind of podcast, Catherine, is go into those deep niches where they might not have had a product before and kind of want a product. And the way that we think about that is service-based businesses, because every service-based business wants to be a product-based business. Every product business wants to be a service business and vice versa. So we just thought about every service business that's out there that might be interested in socks, and podiatrists came to mind. We went really hard on that. We acquired pretty much every podiatrist in the country. And then, we've managed to hold on to quite a few. And now we've got, 1,000. A long answer. I'm sorry, but I get a bit excited about sharing how to do it.
Oh, that's fascinating. And that was all possible through the Faire platform because they were then using it
Or you were introducing people to Fair at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
Fair was heavily incentivized to do that. Obviously, once you get to Fair, you then are more likely to shop other products as well. So there's definitely a transactional element of Fair versus kind of that relationship
Mhm.
building retail experience that you'd expect in kind of like a brand going directly to a retailer rather than via a marketplace. But what I would say is like, and this is something that we hear all the time is people say, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to build the relationship. Well, actually, that might be fine. And I don't know about you guys, but there's quite a lot of businesses that we manage that are probably
Mhm.
doing, half the average order value
Mhm.
compared to someone who has a relationship with us. But
Yeah.
more importantly, there's absolutely zero operational overhead. I don't have to
Mm.
speak with them. The order comes through. I get guaranteed payment. There's just absolutely no risk. And so it's super easy. Pipe straight in from Fair into my Shopify, then into my warehouse. Order goes out. I get paid. So there's definitely pros and cons, but I think it's definitely worth testing out.
So let's talk about then the Fair platform. So you've seen a lot of brands that try to get stock through Fair, but what are some of the biggest mistakes you see business owners make when it comes to the Fair platform, and what should they do instead?
The number one we hear is, oh, I've listed all my products on Fair. I still haven't got an order. And that's because typically 99 times out of 100, when someone says that, they haven't done a bit more work to get the next order. So they've listed everything. They've got a great product range. They've developed their page. It looks fantastic. Maybe they haven't done B2B focused SEO. That's step one. Make sure it's really easy to search. Fair is a much more underdeveloped platform in comparison to Google, who's been doing SEO for 20 plus years. So
Mhm.
focus on those like top tier keywords. This is our duck sock, right? So go back to it. What we say on our website is we title this the Save the Ducks Bamboo Sock. But on Fair, it's duck sock, duck bamboo sock, blue sock, really top level key terms. And that's what we recommend. And then the second part is go out and find retailers that you can introduce to Fair and send some of your retailers to purchase through Fair. You get guaranteed payment and they get more retailers onto their platform and they're going to push you in their algorithm. Every business to a T that I've seen do that has massively increased their sales. What do you recommend, Catherine? Is there anything you've kind of seen so far in that space?
Well, I think you make a great point there about the discoverability, because I think that Fair is used by so many retailers for discovery, right? They are looking for something very specific, but I think there's also, making sure that you're shouting about your credentials. People who are retailers who curate their products, they often will have very specific criteria, right? So they want it to be, some people will only buy things that are plastic free, for example, or they might buy things that are, organic or regenerative. So whatever it might be, make sure it's really easy for people to see what your kind of, as I said, like credentials or your selling points are. I think that's a really interesting point there about actually seeing that in uptick when you introduce people to the Fair platform. And makes sense, right? Because Fair want more, they want more retailers, they want more demand on the platform for sure. That's always
Yeah,
been their goal, isn't it? They want to reach more retailers and they want to boost the demand for their people on their platform. I think it's just really thinking about how the retailer is going to be using it, which is still a lot of the time for discovery, right? They're trying to find something new and different and fun and interesting for their customers. That's always the question that they're asking themselves. Is my customer going to love this?
that is such a good insight. And really like the key part, I think that the value proposition that Fair brings to brands like ourselves
Mm,
is that it makes discoverability so much
mm,
easier.
yeah.
Whereas previously, maybe you went to Spring Fair, maybe you went to the big trade shows, maybe you kind of were hoping that someone finds you. But now there's kind of that one place, one stop shop to find new brands that align with all of your values and go through that. And
Yeah,
you
for
don't have
sure.
to be in these
And
really
I think
expensive
as well,
places.
the other thing that I would say about a lot of retailers is that they're trying to, presumably it's the same for these rich niches like the podiatrists, right? They're trying to find products that are going to be really unique to them and really set them apart from their local competition. So I think that's the great thing about Fair as well, is this whole range to choose from. And you can create something that really reflects you as the business owner, what you want to put in your store, and then also help set you apart so that you're not just selling carbon copy of what somebody down the street is selling, right? Because that's why we go to independents, to get something unique that is really reflective of the owner's perspective as opposed to just kind of a generic product.
That is such a good connection. And Fair makes that easy with the exclusivity by just making it super simple. Okay, I can get exclusivity as a retailer at a relatively small amount, depending on what the brand is offering.
Mm.
And that gives you that certainty that actually I'm going to be the only person stocking this in town. That's
Yeah.
the number one thing. So many indies I know, they just want to know that they're going to have a unique kind of selling point, or, next door neighbor sells Thought, or, maybe they sell some other type of brand, but actually I want to be the only people selling their kind socks.
Mm.
Yeah, that's actually a great connection.
Yeah. It means a lot to them. I think it's a great addition to the platform. So you could have kept all of this wholesale knowledge for yourself, but instead you launched Candid Founders. What was it that made you want to help other people with their wholesale journey?
The whole thing for us with Their Kind is that we donate 10% of the profits from the sock to the animal on the sock.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to continue that, I guess, ethos and mission, not just for our business, but for all businesses. So what we're trying to do is share all of the great knowledge that we've gotten on Their Kind. One of those ways is by the mission-driven element of our brand, where we donate 10% of profits from the sock. We support over 40 different charities. And I can't tell you how often customers come into bat for us. We're the number one rated sock on Trustpilot because we do so many great things other than just build the world's best sock. And then so many people are behind us. So we're really trying to encourage other businesses, whether that's a retailer, whether that's a brand, to connect to a purpose which makes sense for you. Obviously, donating to animal charity isn't going to work for every business, or, maybe you're a fashion business, maybe you focus on homelessness or something. Whatever works for you guys. We think that the world would be a much better place if people did donate 10% of profits. We did profits rather than revenue because every business is different, and it's a relatively achievable amount. And if you don't make a profit that year, then you don't have to donate. And that's kind of, I think, a really strong position to kind of say to a business owner, like, this can do great for the world. Why don't you think about it? So that's why we are sharing everything and anything that we can on through Candid Founders.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm a big believer in doing good through business. I worked with a Work for Good charity. They've been on the podcast before. Work for Good platform, I should say. Really fascinating. They're also big campaigners for people donating. And I think the point that they made was that if, even if 1 in 10 businesses donated, 1% of revenue, then it would add billions to the charity budget, charitable donations. And I think that it's so true. I think if 10% feels really unachievable, even if you start with 1%, right, it's just a way of starting. And then, over time you can eke it up because, if you can run your business on 100% of what you're getting in, then 99% has got to be workable, and you can put that 1% aside. But it's a really fascinating model that more and more businesses can be a force for good. I'm a big believer in that. So no, that's absolutely brilliant. What's one thing that you wish more founders understood before they dived into wholesale? Because, it can be overwhelming for small businesses. What do you think is a good, something to really get your head around before you start?
There's so many, I think it's just one of those areas of how do you start to capture the real benefits of being a small business, but kind of iterate and invent where it makes sense for you. So when we started Their Kind, we wanted to change everything. And the longer we've gone, we've realized that pretty much everything's been done most things have been done for a pretty good reason. So just setting your business up in the right way for success long-term. So small things like getting SKUs so that you can track products, not just through Shopify, Faire, or all your other platforms, just kind of that like operational improvement, right?
Yeah.
Do a little bit of
I'm laughing because I do a lot of work with my clients, and we do, on reporting and looking at your sales and looking at your sales across channels. And let me tell you, the number of times I say to people, please SKU numbers, because it's so much easier to pull data across channels if you've just got one number that represents that product. You can make up whatever number it is you want, but just have a code, because people name things differently across different channels, and it's just so much more work to try and pull it all together. So yes, I love that. It's one of those really small, it's like one of those super uninteresting things, but it makes a massive difference. So I'm really glad you said that.
Well, and it's really intimidating, I think, to begin with. Like, oh, what's a SKU? Never heard of it outside of, business. But just start easy. What we did with our socks, and you can always change the SKU. That doesn't matter. We started with duck sock 4-7 for the size and the actual sock. But now it's, DCK. It says then a little bit more about information about it, the sizes, and then we've got batches and that type of thing afterwards. And so now whenever I need to find out how is this duck sock 4-7 going, you're exactly right. And that makes it easy to then track inventory, then track sales, then track the stock that you've got in. Maybe to begin with, you manage your own stock and then it goes out to a warehouse. They'll expect the SKU and then you whack it onto a barcode. And it's just step by step. Start with a SKU and then everything else can come after that.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on these kind of rich niches and how you went through and got like every podiatrist. And I know that I've heard you speak about this before, but I would love you to share it on the podcast, because I think a lot of people, when they hear things like that, they just kind of go, well, how would I even do that? How do I find like all the podiatrists in the UK? And I think probably the answer is less exciting and more obvious than you might think. But can you just talk us through a little bit about how you kind of, when you find a niche that you want to dive into, like how you actually go about, finding people and contacting them?
So nuts and bolts, like what's every step on this? And like I told you last time, Kevin, it's such a good way to think about it because just making it as simple as possible. So we wanted a service-based business that would be interested in our products. We knew that podiatrists already stock socks, but they're all medicinal. They're all focused on soft cuffs. They're these stockings that you do use for flying. And it's really a technical based business, but podiatrists have people coming through all year, every year, because feet needs are always going to continue to evolve, right? So you've got that kind of niche. Okay, well, I've identified who that customer is. Who does that customer, so who do the podiatrists trust? That's the key insight here, the trust element. And we knew that there's going to be professional body for someone like this. So it makes sense from a medicinal standpoint. You've got podiatrists, you've got the Royal College of Podiatry in the UK. If you've got another type of area, maybe you sell building materials, who's the building industry trade body? And we went through Royal College of Podiatry. We got our socks certified by them and we're now trusted by the Royal College of Podiatry. And then we paid them a small amount of money to advertise our socks to their members and this offer to their members. Easy step. Identify them, find out who do they trust, and then see if there's a way where you can set up some financial metrics that incentivizes, the Royal College of Podiatry to send an email on your behalf, advertising to all of their members. I don't need to get all of that, the 10,000 members of UK Podiatry. They can hold, that's fine, but introduce them to our product. And I can see that working across pretty much every business out there.
I mean, that's an amazing point. And I think a lot of people probably don't think of it like that. The question I always say to people is like, always think about who already has a relationship with your ideal customer. And that's a great example of how you not only identified who has that relationship, but you actually leverage that relationship to get certified and get trusted. And I think trust is a really important element and probably one that a lot of people overlook. But then how did you actually go about working out who to contact? Did the Royal Society of Podiatrists have a list of members or were you Googling? Like what were you doing?
Yeah, we went out to the Royal College of Podiatry. They had like a contact us number. So I just gave them a call and I said, hey guys, this is me. I sell socks. I want to sell some socks to your members. What do we do? How can I get involved? And most of these professional bodies will get money from a few sources. One will be membership. Two will also be professional memberships where businesses sponsor the industry bodies to put on shindigs, get-togethers, kind of industry sharing of best practices, that type of stuff. And so then 9 times out of 10, you get on that call, you speak to someone at the reception desk and they'll put you through to the right member of the team, or maybe they'll give you an email address. I think we got an email address. We just kind of sent our pitch off to them, see what they thought. To begin with, we were kind of just thinking, okay, we'll do just like maybe an email blast. They listed all of their members online. So you could have gone through individually, found them and mailed them. But obviously you want to try and avoid that where possible and get out to people via the trusted source, like you say. And then they were super open to it. It took a bit of back and forth, maybe over the course of a month or two. Initially, I thought, maybe this doesn't actually do anything. Maybe it's a bit too much work, but sticking through it, it was just a great experiment. It might have gone nowhere, but in the end, it actually went somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And then did you duplicate that for other niches or was it really focusing on podiatrists for socks?
Yeah, the other niches for us were around like spas, hotels, that kind of again, another service-based business. And then by the time we'd done that, we were off to the races on the FAIR algorithm because we had so many great 5-star reviews. And if you've got a great product already and you're ready to kind of sell to more people, then you just need to get in front of those eyeballs. So now we're in a whole bunch of independent fashion retailers on the socks. We're in a lot of gift stores, fair trade, eco-conscious stores, that type of thing, refillable stores. We've got a lot of socks that are perfect for the coast. And so before you know it, all of those other niches that weren't thinking about your business or our socks before are now interested in it. And so, maybe you've got a tea towel business and you've been selling pretty much to home goods stores. Well, I can guarantee you there's 10,000 home goods stores in the country. They probably all go through some type of
Mm.
independent trade body. And how do you kind of win that for you?
Yeah, yeah. It's such an important message as well because, it's not a magic wand, right? There's a lot of legwork involved, but with that legwork and persistence and it paid off. And then finally, as you said, the algorithm did pick up and start picking up some of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I just think we help some businesses do this now because obviously some businesses are just super busy, as you know, they've got to do everything under the sun, the operations, the product management, managing the direct to consumer. So we help some businesses do this on B2B. And I know of, say, for example, one drinks brand.
Hmm.
It's a drinks brand in the US that we work with. They've got a fantastic product. It's absolutely gorgeous. They're brand new as a business. And so actually, they might actually be too advanced on their branding to kind of demonstrate how good the rest of their operation is. So people kind of see this brand, they're like, oh my God, that brand's amazing. How come I've never seen it before? And they're asking questions on quality. But what we're doing with that brand is we're like, okay, well, it's a great brand. It's got some type of caffeine in it. Okay. Where are the big caffeine users? Cafes. Do cafes have that many other products in them outside of coffee? Pretty much no. So where are all the great coffee bean roasters and where are all of the products going? And then how do we maybe cross sell through that channel? Hey, look, we'd love you to send an email introducing our brand. Here's £1,000 to do so. Would that work? And just see if people say yes or no.
Hmm.
You could go on that just for pretty much all businesses.
Yeah. So it's like collaboration and getting in front of other people's audiences as long as they're aligned.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and exactly why we wanted to come on this pod today. You guys are doing such a great job at helping other businesses grow. And, we kind of had a bit of a chat on LinkedIn, said, hey, would you guys be interested in a bit of a cross share? And this podcast is built. So yeah, collaboration, absolutely the way to go on from a B2B standpoint.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I also really like how you think outside the box somewhat as well. Well, a lot really. I mean, it's like it'd be easier to say, right, okay, well, I sell socks. Okay, I'm going to go for gift stores or clothing stores or, or in the case of drinks, thinking, right, well, it's got to be supermarkets or grocery stores. But it's like really putting yourself, I guess, in the consumer's mindset. Like, how do you kind of come up with just kind of brainstorming when you're working on these ideas?
I wish I knew, but I think the main thing is just you're thinking, like you've said, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The end consumer,
Mm,
where are they going
mm,
and who might be interested in the
mhm,
product? Let's take another brand that we work with. It's a tea type of business. They
mm,
work with tea leaves. So where is that person buying their tea leaves from? And then you've got kind of like a complementary product to it. Fantastic.
mhm,
Let's find out where they are. We work with another business that does like games, kind of like card games, that type of stuff. Where are all of those people buying those products now?
mhm,
Probably gift stores, probably game stores, and just find what that might be. Where else could they be? Well, this is a playing card game that's all about kind of like fostering connections and that type of
mm.
thing. So where else do you foster connections? I don't know. Maybe an internet cafe. There's going to be a whole bunch of ones that you get wrong, but there'll be some that you get right. And no one ever cares about the ones you get wrong. You're the only person that ever remembers it. So just roll the dice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think that's such a good antidote to because wholesale, it can be hard and it can be kind of a little bit soul destroying if you reach out to like 100 people and you don't hear back. Or I'd say a lot of the time with wholesale, I hear people say like, oh, well, I've reached out to 5 people and I didn't hear anything. So I guess maybe it's not wholesale's not for me. And it's like, that's not, it's a lot bigger operation than that often. But I think probably because a lot of it is that legwork to work out where are the people who are going to respond. But once you find the people responding, then your time becomes a lot more productive, right?
Ah, what a soundbite. We have emailed over 80,000 businesses in the
Mm,
past 8 years,
wow.
and we are a total failure because we've only gotten 1,000 plus of them.
Yeah.
But guess what I don't talk about? I don't say it took us 80,000, failed attempts to get
Yeah.
1,000 businesses. All I ever speak about is the success of 1,000 plus businesses we work with.
Yeah.
Oh, just go hard. Introduce, people can say no, that's fine. No problems.
That is such a good point because I think people just don't That's probably actually not far off the ratio. I remember I worked with a company once that really wanted to push their wholesale outreach, and they wanted to get one new stockist a week. So they employed somebody full time, and that was their goal, was to reach out to 70 to 80 people a week to get one stockist. And I think that, obviously that may be more or less depending on your niche, but like when people think about wholesale and they're like, oh, it didn't work. When you're talking about that kind of ratio, 1 to 70 to 1 to, 70 to 80, then it just goes to show it's just a question of being relentless, right?
It's the most soul destroying job, but also at the end of it, the thing that is going to build your business the most. It's one of those ones where it's super uninteresting, super boring, super hard. Everyone says no, but if you just do it, it works really well. And that's why we recommend email, because it's lower touch. People aren't going to say no to your face. They just hang up on you if you're on a telephone call, but email's fine. They just delete it, whatever, move on next. And under GDPR, if you have a legitimate reason to email a fellow business owner, you can, or a fellow business, you can. So, go out and do that. As long as you've got a legitimate reason for doing so, and you're not spamming heaps of people, you're not sending, your socks to, I don't know, a kitchen business that has no reason that they ever stock your socks, as an example, fine. No problems.
Yeah. I love that. Such a great message. So looking ahead, how do you see the wholesale landscape changing in 2025? What do you think that small businesses should be thinking about to stay ahead?
The big one for us, we just came back from Spring Fair. So for your non-UK audience, that is one of the largest trade shows in the UK. Your UK audience probably already knows it. But we just came back from Spring Fair 2025, and we had an absolutely stonking show year before last, and it was amazing. So good. I reckon footfall was down 50% minimum. And so we are seeing trade shows, and obviously there's a space for it, but we're seeing kind of trade show buyers no longer turning up to trade shows. Last year, we were opposite the food court. The food court was standing room only the entire time from 10 o'clock onwards. They'd get their tea, they'd roll straight through to lunch, they'd have afternoon tea. And by the time it was closed, it was still standing room only. This year, anybody and everyone could get a seat. Seats were abundant, no issues. Nothing else changed. So we think that in-person retail is getting harder and harder for the trade show side. Of course, everyone knows in-person retail is getting harder already as it is, but how do you make it easier for in-person retailer? And I think, rather than going up to a trade show for a day, taking a day, maybe 2 out of the business to go to multiple trade shows, jump on the B2B e-commerce places like Faire, Anchor Store, Create, whatever they are in your individual countries, and have a look at what's available. Try something new and then take it there. So I think it's that continued push from physical into the kind of the non-trade show space and online. That's the big one for us we're seeing for brands. And I think it also makes it easier for retailers. That's my idea.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing all of your golden nuggets. Do you want to finish us off by telling people where they can find out more about you, both Bearkind and Candid Founders?
Absolutely. So find us at bearkind.com, and then at Candid Founders, you can go candidfounders.com, but also check out our YouTube. Just search for Candid Founders and really anything to do with Faire. We give away everything that we do on people's accounts for free on that YouTube. If you just don't have enough time, then give it a shout. But pretty much everything and anything you can do to improve your presence, we give out for free on the YouTube. So have a look at that and check it out.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Why not head over to Instagram at Resilient Retail Club? Let me know where you were listening. Share a picture of you out on your dog walk or what you're up to when you're listening to the podcast. I always love to see those. Let me know what you thought about today's episode. And if you have a moment to rate and review the podcast, it makes a huge difference. And if you like, subscribe or follow, you'll be the first to know about each new episode.